So I think a lot of men are moving in the direction that you're talking about, and I'm sure that a lot of the men that follow my videos are agreeing with the things that you're saying. So I remember reading that Lenin said that to the degree that women are involved with a revolution is to the degree that it will be successful. What does a man do today who wants to follow the path that you're describing do in terms of turning women back to the natural order, fathers, patriarchy, true masculinity, especially when they've essentially been given free rein to live that liberal life that you described, which gives them the power to kill their own children and to have no-fault divorce and to use contraception? What do we do in order to lead women back to this way of being, especially when a lot of people have a negative association with it?
From what I've been saying about the importance of fathers within families, hopefully what I'll say next makes sense in the light of that, because we need fathers to be encouraging the traditional feminine virtues in their daughters and having quite open conversations about why what girls in particular are being sold through magazines, internet media, films as a good female life where you spend your most fertile years, let's call it 19 to 26 or so. I think that's around peak fertility, or even the whole of your 20s. That shouldn't be spent on a career for a woman, because you can see many of them gambling on the fact that when they hit 30, 35, then they'll have kids. And for some of them, that doesn't work out. They can't conceive then. So a woman's 20s are a very precious time, and men need to be willing to support women. It's going to be financially, in other words, not treating them like feminists that they expect to go out and earn their own money, because that is what being a feminist man is, in my opinion. If you are someone who is going to split the bill with a woman you're dating, if when you're married you're expecting her to pay for her own stuff, you're a feminist. So if you want that traditional setup with a woman, you need to step up to it and be that traditional man. People talk about having a trad wife. Well, with that comes a trad life, and it's a big ask for a man to do that. I would argue that what men are complaining about nowadays in terms of there being no real rite of passage, how do you know when you're not a boy anymore? You haven't got to go out and kill a lion. You haven't got to go out and jump off a bridge somewhere. You haven't got to go and perform some feat in the wilderness. That craving for a rite of passage is really about a craving for more responsibility. And obviously with that, it's going to come more authority. And you will find that in the demands and pressures of being a husband and a father. Now, are there still going to be some women who don't want to go in for that? Yes. And there might be very attractive ones that your eye, like Adam with the apple, is telling you that's the one I want. But you need to look deeper than that. You need to look for a woman who has shared values and whose eyes are going to be on the same goal as you. And my gut feeling is that you want to look at her relationship to her father as a guide for how she's going to relate to you as a man. So is she respectful to her father? Or are you seeing that there's real problems with accepting his leadership, his authority, assuming he deserves it, because some men don't deserve submission?
So you're saying that one of the green flags to look for in a potential wife would be a young lady who has a father and has a rightly ordered relationship with her father. What other things should young men look for in a woman to determine whether or not she's worth the risk of marriage?
Talk to her about what her values are, what her plans are. I think it's good to get married young. So I would recommend that more men get married in their early 20s and getting married to women who are also the same age. So you know then that you're both stepping up to this together, and it's her most precious, fertile window. And think of it as her giving that to you. That's a big gift, a big commitment, and you need to respect that and honor it. And it's your job to make her feel secure. I think a lot of this comes from women not feeling protected, not feeling provided for, and having to fulfill the man's role, having to go out and earn money and create the home and create that environment that the man should be doing for them. So really it's about a woman, and I think most women really are craving this, who is willing to follow strong male leadership, because the feminists really have got a point in that if a man isn't strong, isn't willing to be a leader, if he's just out for his own selfish pleasure and running away from responsibility, well then why would you want to submit to his authority?
So you got married young. How old were you when you got married?
23. I was raised atheist and found my way to Christian values basically from loving my girlfriend, now wife, and thinking, what is this all about? And being thrown into fatherhood quite young. My wife had our first when she was 19 and I was 20. So we had kids before getting married, which is not something I'd recommend other people do, because I think you need to have that commitment in contract in front of all your friends, your family, and wider society before you have children. That's important. But I didn't do it that way. I know why that was wrong, but at the time I didn't. And figuring it out as I went along and learning from my own mistakes and basically coming all the way from childhood and teenage atheism to where I am now, which is being a proponent of traditional Christian values.
So you got married early, you became a Christian, and now you have 6 children?
6 children, yeah. And when I lost the job, I lost my house with it. So that was big because it was upheaval. And I didn't have another house except for the one that came with living on site at that boarding school. Because I had to work there sometimes 7 days a week, sports fixtures, evening duties, things like that. So it was a big decision for me. And even now, sometimes I think, well, did I really do that? Did I really walk away from that? And the reason is that to have stayed there would have infected me with something on the inside that would damage my integrity. And I think it's bad for a family to have the father coming home from a job where he's had to break something within himself and weakened himself. So it's more important to be able to look your wife and children in the eye and say that you, as their leader, when you go to work, you haven't had to sell yourself out. It's more important to have that integrity than it is to get what feels comfortable, like with the apple, get what looks good, get the money. So that was difficult and it was a big decision for me, but I think it was the right one.
Does your wife work?
No. So one of my goals as a man, even before I was Christian, has always been to try to make it so my wife has got the option, if she wants it, of staying at home with the kids. And I've always been able to make that happen. So that's something that I've seen the value of. And I don't think there's any setup that can compare to that. I think it's the traditional setup because it's time tested and it's passed the test for a very good reason. And what woman who has spent her children's years in the office while someone else has looked after them really is going to look back on it and not wonder whether spending more time with them herself wouldn't have been better? I think kids benefit more from a mother than they do from a stranger at daycare.